Hi, welcome to the seminar. What?
You're talking to that.
I'm talking to that. Hey, welcome to the seminar. My name is Jet Jaguar. This is the Recording Conservatory of Austin. I wanted to let you guys know that if you are streaming the seminar currently live, you can always ask questions in the chat. We're set up now so that Waterboy will keep track of your questions, and at the appropriate time, he will ask them of me, and I will answer them for you. If you don't hear your question get answered in something like real time, just hang out to the end and we will get to all of your questions. So today's topic, drum tracking. We wanted to kind of put a point on it. We've done drum tracking quite a bit. And as much as I do want to keep repeating the same for all of the people who are newcomers, and as well as for repetition, which is always good, I want to sampling. So that will be our recording goal. We've done a few things before that I'm going to try to change up this time just to make some of the things, some of the variables we maneuver a little different. But the basic topics we're going to cover today are mic placement, overall drum strategy, session setup, and phase checking. So first thing we want to do is position these microphones. These guys have done a good job of positioning them roughly where we want them to go. Quick aside, this is Tom 2. You'd rather have this than this?
Yeah.
Yeah? You don't want the floor tom?
I'd rather have both, but...
Well, you can't have both.
Can't have both? Then I'd rather have this.
Okay, I figured that would be the case. All right.
Wakanda.
That's that floor tom, that Wakanda drum. All right, so let's start with the tom. Floor tom is actually a pretty good place to start. If you look at the book Mixing with Your Mind, which I highly recommend anybody who is getting started in audio engineering, check it out and then read it every year. You're gonna find new stuff. So Stav, if you're watching, which I know you must be, right? We're gonna start with floor tom. I know you love that. So the floor tom over here, keep in mind I'm not using the Stav drum technique. So floor tom over here, we're using an ATM 250, which we're gonna place very carefully on the drum. And then the idea here is to figure out what blend of resonance, sort of boom, 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 the note of the drum we want as blended with the articulation, the attack, the stick. So why don't you hit the tom for me? Great. The stick kind of sounds like garbage. It doesn't have that much resonance. So I'm going to aim here kind of towards the edge, see what we get with a nice rimmy sound. I expect this to be pretty boingy, pretty boo, boo, boo. This is hip hop. Did I say this yet? This is hip hop. This is hip hop. Okay. So we're going to come over here. Let's look at tom 1 while we're at it. Will you hit tom 1 for me? Ew. Ew. So tom 1 is rattling the snare like a crazy, crazy person. Keep that in mind. Remember that for later. We're going to bring back that concept, that information is going to be crucial later when we start doing one-shots. For right now, I'm going to do the same thing with this tom, except I'm going to go kind of halfway between pointing it at the spot where the stick is hitting it and pointing it at the rim. I have a feeling if we go all rim, this one's going to end up sounding like, We probably don't want that. Cool. Why not? Let's go in a weird order today. We're gonna go hi-hat. Yeah, we need to play it open for me. Ooh, ooh. All right, it's a bit harsh, a bit piercing, so I'm gonna not point this mic directly at it. I'm instead gonna go like off axis. It's a fairly unconventional, uncommon thing to do with a hi-hat. What is pretty commonplace is to see mic placements that use the cardioid polar pattern, which is what we're doing here on our KM184. This is actually kind of backwards here. KM184, and we're pointing the mic away from the rest of the drum kit to hopefully minimize the bleed from the other drums. We want to get him to play the hi-hat again just to make sure it's not in his way. Cool. All right, now let's look at the crash cymbal that is in place of our ride today. I'm actually going to try to come up a little higher. Similar to the hi-hat, I'm kind of going to try to use this mic pointed away from the snare at least to try to minimize that bleed. Hit the crash for me. It's not a bad sound. I don't want to focus on the rim too much. Just like tom drums, you're going to get a blend of articulation versus resonance as you move in on the surface of the cymbal. So out here towards the edge, you're going to get these gongy, blah, all the low end, all the resonance, and in towards the bell, you're going to get more of that sort of shimmery bell tone. I highly recommend, if you've never done this, grab a pair of headphones one day, put your mic through a nice preamp, reasonably high, put your headphones on, and just listen to the cymbal. You can even just do that a little bit, and just move the mic around on the surface of the cymbal. You'll notice a massive, massive tone difference as you just move that cymbal, or move that mic over the landscape of the cymbal. So use that to your advantage. If your cymbal doesn't sound good, especially, even more than shell drums, if your cymbal doesn't sound good, move that mic. Good. Let's look at the snare drum. Yeah. So the snare drum, we've got a special treat today, or it might be a disaster. I have a modified SM58 that I worked on myself. This is modified with what we call the tape op mod. SM58 and 57, basically the same mic, except their windscreens are different. I yorked the windscreen off a Beta 57. So this is an interesting new combination that I've never heard. This is a modified 58, or essentially 57 now, with a Beta 57 windscreen. We're gonna see how this works. The mod specifically is a tape op mod. Really pretty easy for any of you guys who can solder and do basic sort of bench work. Really what you want to, the only thing you're doing is taking the mic apart and removing the transformer. Transformer, it uses electromagnetism to increase the signal strength. So this is going to be a lower output microphone than the regular SM58 or 57, but it should have a thicker, more even frequency response and a nice fat, round transient response. Kind of similar to an SM7, so that's kind of what I'm hoping we get here. I'm going to take this SM57 on the bottom, and I'm going to place it right opposite its top snare counterpart, roughly the same distance, but I'm going to point this guy away from the snares, or at a point on the drum that isn't the snares, and kind of point it a little more at the rim than the top mic. Now this is all just in reaction to what I heard when you played the snare drum. I heard a big rattly, just loose mess. So I'm going to try to keep that kind of tighter on the bottom by pointing away from the snares, get a little more of the body out of the snare by doing that. This guy's going to be a lot closer to parallel to the plane of the drum, but not all the way, so. Okay, I guess we're down to kick and overheads. So let's look at this kick drums. Right here we have Yamaha sub kick, pretty basic. About ½ an inch from the drum. We might come back just a little bit. Sometimes I like to be closer to an inch off the drum, especially if it's kind of a knocky, boomy little piece like this. And then this guy, the Beta 52, what I'm trying to do is align this capsule with the sub-kick capsule, which is actually the speaker you see on the front. By aligning these capsules, I'm going to create the best phase relationship I can between the two. I also want to try being closer to the edge with this guy. We've tried it in a few different places. Now we're going to try it up here closer to the edge. All right, let's see how that works out. Again, being careful to try to align these two capsules. Now, in both cases, I kind of have to operate by knowledge of where those capsules are. In the case of the 52, it's under a grill, under a metal windscreen, and in the case of this guy, it's back probably about aligned with this plane right here. So I'm trying to align those two. Hopefully we did a good job. Now these overheads, you want to move your phone? Thank you. Purpose of the overheads is to give me a full kind of room level picture of the drum kit. We'll notice when we pull up these direct mics, well, that got moved. We'll notice when we pull up these direct mics that they are component pieces of the drums that we're trying to record. They might all sound great. They might all be pieces of the drums that we're super familiar with, having listened to mixed drums. They're going to be crucial to the mix, but they are not themselves going to sound like the drums do standing in front of them. That to me is what I get from the overheads and room mics that is indispensable. The other thing I'm going to get from these mics is a cohesive stereo image. So I'm trying to use these two overheads to give me first that sort of backed away. So distance is crucial. These overheads are going to be far enough from the drums that the sound from each drum is reaching them much closer to the same time and the same intensity than any of these close mics. So again, that's what gives it that sound like you're standing with the drums in the room. Also, these condenser mics are going to have nice, fast, transient response. So I'm looking to get some articulation, some transient tappy-tappy out of these mics. And then maybe most importantly, I'm looking to get stereo image. So the fact that I have two of the same mic in a matched pair placed over the left and the right of the drum kit at strategic locations allows me to pan one left and one right. And then in my mix, what we will hear is a nice left to right stereo image representative of the entire kit. In this case, my left to right is kind of like floor tom to hi-hat, which is a bit weird. We'll see how this goes. We'll see how this starts. The key to any good miking strategy is to allow yourself to make changes when things aren't exactly the way you want them. Also, if you're setting up drums and you haven't yet asked the question, what drum sound am I going for? Stop setting up drums, go back to the drawing board, figure out the sound you want first. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have a sound in your brain, or at least a rough idea when you're setting this stuff up, in order to evaluate the sounds you're getting against that idea. It's entirely possible, and indeed entirely common for engineers to create a super great sounding drum set that is super wrong for the recording they're trying to make. So great sounds recorded don't necessarily a great recording overall make, right? You can take the coolest red, blue, yellow, all the greatest colors, throw them all on the canvas and end up with brown. Don't end up with brown. Have an idea of what you're trying to paint and get in there. All right, so I'm going to measure the distance from the center of the snare with the help of my drummer here. Thank you. Distance to the center of the snare that from each of these capsules. 43 over here. This is going to be too close. And the idea is we want them equidistant from the center of the snare. Okay, spin that, thank you. 36. So we need to come maybe back a couple inches, maybe up a couple inches. Often this is where I end up, back a little and up on this side in order to get the same distance from the snare. Cool. Let's go with that. See how that works out. I think we're good. Let's head into the control room and see what we get. Alrighty. Where's Water Boy? I don't know where to look. I guess I'll just start doing this. Water Boy.
What's up?
Hey. All right. So I'm going to be here for a second. Up in this piece. Good. Hi. All right. We are setting up our Pro Tools session now. Let's close these doors. Let's not hear spastic drumming while we're doing this. I think he has headphones. Yeah. And I mean no offense, all drumming is spastic. So let's look at this. And we're going to create a session. So looking over in Pro Tools, create a new session. Let's call this Seminar Drums. Dungeon one-shots. Nice. 24-bit, 44.1, that'll work for today. Good. Good, yes. All right. So it came up here with our A-room template. We've done this session creation drill both ways. Today I'm just going to do it from the template because I think it's good for you to see all the different ways. Notice the template in this room, being the A-room here at the City Park Studio, has the names of preamps written down here in the notes. So these preamp labels correspond to the preamps that are normaled through each of these conversion channels. So I need to make a couple of switches here because my Vintex, well, let's see how this works out. In general, I want all of my drums going through the same converter. Every converter has its own little tiny piece of built-in latency. So in this case, I want to throw all of my drums through the apogee converter. That will prevent the apogee and the Lavery conversion having different conversion times and thusly potential phase problems. All right, so where's my mic sheet? Cool. Looking at this, I'm just going to start down the list. Wonder 1, also known as Wonder A, my kick inside. All I'm doing is labeling the channels with the thing that is going into them. And this is Wonder B. Yeah, let's go real short abbreviations. I like really short abbreviations because I also like narrow mix view. And if you use more than like 4 or 5 characters per track label, then it starts just mashing them all together in a way that is untenable. So I like really short ones. Tom 1, Tom 2, be Vintech 3 and 4. That's right, we made the executive decision there will be no Tom 3. Hi-hat and ride are in, what did we go with? Neve 1A and 1B, cool. You'll notice that I'm using all solid state preamps so far. Pretty much everything so far that I've used is some flavor of Neve 1073 and or an AMEC 9098. I find them punchy. I find them drummy in a way that I like. We could break down all kinds of reasons why solid state preamps would be the ones we might like for drums. We will have that theoretical breakdown sometime in a future seminar. If that's a question for you, ask that question. But for now, just we like solid state preamps and we like Neve preamps for drums. That's what we're doing. And then overhead left and overhead right. You know, I'm going to make the... No, I'm not. I'm not changing anything. UA left, UA right. Cool. Good. So I've got all my microphones designated to track channels. These guys I'm just going to hide and make inactive. Likelihood is that I will delete them later on, but for now I'm just going to leave them here. Now, I have one issue. My Vintech 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all in Lavry preamps, or at Lavry conversion, sorry. So I'm going to send these guys over looking, yep, okay, I don't see anything on 7 through 8. So I'm just going to send these over to Apogee 7, 8, 9, 10. Cool. So I'm going to have to look at those. Otherwise, we should be good. So let me get some patching going. Kick outside is going to Apogee 7. I should have done these one at a time, shouldn't I have? That's 1, going to 7. Okay, this is easy though. 1 to 7, 2 to 8, 3 to 9, and that should be it, right? Nope, 10. That's right, Tom 2. So we need one more. You guys in the room all follow me on this patching? Who's lost? Who's lost in the patching? No? You guys can feel free to get up close here and take a quick close look at this patching, or not. You can just not. That's fine too. Okay. So, hey buddy, if you have me in the headphones, just start kicking that kick. Oh, there it is. There it is. This is how you know your gear is vintage, even if it's brand new. All right, so we've got kick drum coming in. You guys know I like the -15 dBFS input level for reasons I'm happy to defend. If you want to ask that question, ask that question. Cool. So here comes a little EQ on this inside kick. Actually, you know what? I wanted to take a minute here in the seminar to bring up something that I've been thinking about lately and have heard this from a couple of people who I respect echoed back at me. And so I'm thinking that we may be reaching a turning point in, hey, you can chill out on the kick for a sec. I'm pontificating. So we may be reaching a point where in-the-box EQs are becoming good enough that there's no longer such a heavy premium on using analog EQs. And EQs impart phase shift. So any of you guys who are foggy on that, and I would expect most of you guys to be foggy on that particular concept, let me just nutshell it for you. EQs impart phase shift. So every time you change the frequency content of your stuff, right? The resulting waveform does not have the same phase reality as the one that you previously had. So it will, at best, cause you no problems. At worst, it will cause you unwanted phase issues and phase correlation degradation as you move along. So I suggest, as we all should, to get solid phase relationships during tracking and then maintain them throughout mixing. So what I'm getting at here is that we may be reaching a tipping point where outboard EQs are not really the way we ought to be doing things if we want to firstly keep our options open and second remain phase correlated in the best way possible. Now, this is kind of new thinking that is sacrilegious to a lot of schools of thought, and certainly that's going to be a pretty tough pill to swallow for people who are sitting in front of $60,000 worth of outboard EQs right now. But if you keep everything as phase coherent as you can and you track phase coherent tracks, it might be better for us to do EQs only in the box. So I'm going to be embarking on the next few months of tracking everything without EQs on the way in kind of philosophy. And when we need them, we'll be using EQs in the box. So hit me with that kick again. I'm going to turn my EQ off here on the preamp. We've got a Neve style EQ. Here's another argument for this. We have a Neve style EQ in front of us. But if I could, I would rather use an SSL style EQ to kind of tailor this kick a little bit. Now, you could argue, why am I doing it here? Well, firstly, I want to know that my choices are the best possible ones. And so you guys know when I work VMR, I like to have input gain, input level, output level. We always want to be level matched. So I'm going to be looking for, firstly, this thing. Cool. And then I'm going to be looking at this thing. Matching my in by out. Tighter, punchier. Might make this one a little fatter. Cool. Then I'm going to try a little bit of a boost here on the bottom. Before, after, yeah? Cool. So this is the same thing that I would be doing with an outboard EQ. Again, I wanted to let you guys know about this thinking because it's forefront in my thought process right now. The problem with learning things that are forefront in people's thought process is that I may decide next week this is a terrible idea. You guys may prove to me next week this is a terrible idea. So you guys, if you want to try this is the way I encourage you to start recording anyway, without outboard EQs. That way they're not baked in. But when you see me using outboard EQs, it's mostly so that I have proof of concept. I need to know that this kick is going to sound the way I want it to sound, and that's working pretty well for me. Okay, so more kicks. Ooh, yeah. Ooh. That sub kick is really high output. We got to be careful of that. I want to fuzz that up just a little bit. Use really low input gain, low output gain. I'm going to try some 60. Nope. Look at me. Look at me unable to get out of this EQ mindset. In the box. Come on. So whichever you guys that just can't deal with my trimmers, get out of here. I'm going to put my trimmers back on here. We're going to set current as default. There we go. This makes me like, yeah. I like my SSL EQs on the way in. I like them a lot. In this case, I think the thing I really want to do is get a Pro Q going because I want to make a pretty dramatic low pass maneuver, and then look at this. Don't need that. Level matched, and that's what I want out of this mic. And then in this case, I think I'm good. I don't think I need this. Cool, bring that down. Now I'm going to check these two out. Check my phase flip. Really, that could be better. All right, this is a good moment to go move a microphone. So you guys stay here. I'm just going to go nudge one of these mics just a tiny little bit, see if I can get him in.
Any reason why they'd be buzzing from top bed?
Not that I can think of. All right, let's see if that's any better. So all I did was nudge those two mics around just a little bit, make a second attempt at getting those capsules aligned. Hit me with those kicks. Cool. So this is reversed. That's in. You can hear that punch. It's a little bit subtle, especially without these. Let's try these. It's a lot more pronounced. Cool. Good, I like that relationship. All right, give me some snares. Ooh, jeez. I can't even make a vintage gear joke about that. That's messed up. Cool. I like that input. Look at that. Cool, just trying to wake that guy up a little bit. Nice. And bottom snare. Let that guy come up a little bit. Oh man. Good Lord. Cool. Try a flip. Cool. There's my phase. So, just to point out, that's my modded SM58 with the Beta 57 windscreen on it. Not bad, right? That low end is nice and punchy. The transient response is pretty brutal. I'm digging it. Yeah. Cool. Kick snare, kick snare. Yep. Tom 1. I'm actually pretty happy with that. You guys remember the sound we were trying to avoid? This is actually a pretty clean transient. If I was to look at some stuff on this guy, first port of call would be something like this. It up a little bit. Won't take too much away because that frequency may suck, but it's kind of punchy. That one too. So before, after. Make it all. Oh, good God. Don't need that. Don't need that. Holy Jesus. All right. And Tom 2. So notice on this guy, remember we had the this still seems a little stick heavy to me, and we're all the way at the rim. Four toms. It's and you can't have that low and just flopping around there beneath your drum set the whole time. So one thing is to help counsel your drummers to play those toms at times that are appropriate, you know, so that the length of those low toms doesn't wash all over the rest of their kit when they're trying to be articulate. Also, little tape goes a long way, working with those heads to get the right length of that note. But again, placing the mic where we did today will exaggerate that boom, that long resonant note as much as you possibly can. And so it will get you into trouble. In this case, I think I like it. That wasn't there a second ago, was it? Hey, Drew, what'd you do? I feel like the drum didn't have that thing going on a second ago. Now it seems to. Can you fix that? I can't hear you, but I'm assuming you're saying yes. Hang on, let me press the thing. Oh, geez, don't talk, don't talk. That was gonna be so loud. That's a little better. That's a little better, but not a ton. No, by the way, you can't EQ that out. That's right in your middle range. That would be, it's too wide, too wide. It sounds like maybe there's something, like maybe some tape, like rubbing on something, or maybe one of those lugs needs to be a little, just tweak just a little bit. Little tweak, little lug tweak. Being super nice. So you guys have seen me before, and on almost every case we've done so far, I've started with my overheads. The theory that one should start with their overheads stands. I'm just trying to change it up a little bit for you guys from seminar to seminar. And in this case, we're going for one shots, so the overheads are likely to not be quite as important. Fundamentally, if you're recording individual drum strikes and then you plan to sequence them later, the wash that happens between hits as the drummer hits multiple drums and things wash together, that magic that is real drumming, that makes it so that a live drummer is what you want sometimes and not others, that becomes less of a thing that is quite as important. So in this case, we're going for direct mics first, and that's why. You can try it out now if you want. That's better. Oh. I still think something seems to maybe have come loose. Like it was really good, and now there's a bow wow, which we're going to ignore for now. The frequency response on that one's actually pretty fine. We might EQ it a little bit later. So let's go on to hi-hat. Oh yeah, baby. No? You playing hi-hat? I'm gonna guess yes, and that this is not working right now. Let's go check our routing on the hi-hat and ride mics. My guess is they're not entirely routed to these Neve preamps. Let's try the ride. Yeah. How about somebody who isn't David? I appreciate your go-to-itness, but can't always be, yeah. Thanks, Tyler.
I don't understand why if you EQ something on a preamp and then still phase check it, how it's going to affect it down the line.
It won't necessarily affect it down the line. It's just that phase relationship is now baked in and is now your starting point, as opposed to non-phase decorrelated sounds being your starting point. Nothing else that you do will decorrelate your phase in that way on the way in. So compression is phase correlated in almost every case as long as it's not frequency dependent, etc. So there is the counter argument, which I would probably make in some cases, is that the sound is the sound. You know, if you have a phase issue going in and you just somehow bake in a bad sound to your sound, then you did a bad job, period. Like, it doesn't matter why you did the bad job. Point being, I've been EQing stuff on the way in for 20 years and it's not a problem. Like, there is no issue inherent in EQing on the way in. It's just that it may be that the reason you do EQ on the way in is that the analog, while EQing in the analog domain has, and still to a large extent is favored over EQing in the digital domain, partially because those phase decorrelations are less pronounced in that analog place. How's that looking?
Hi-hats in Neve 1, rides in Neve 2.
Odd, right? Am I doing something wrong? Apogee 1, Apogee 2, right? Check my work. Check my work. Sure looks fine, doesn't it?
Sure looks fine.
All right then. Two cables at the same time on the same preamp? Yeah. So let's check. Let's go on to overheads, and we'll come back to that mystery. Flipping on these overheads. Go ahead and play some, please. I wonder if we lost. Hey, are you playing drums? Yeah, that I can hear. Oh, never mind. That would do it. Yeah, maybe we should try a restart because we seem to not have any. Oh yeah, no, we've got Apogee, life on the Apogee now. UA 12 and 13. That seems good, right? Well, I'm going to go back and see, make sure we've got these. Yep, those are fine. Still good. And then we hit this spot. There's no man's land. Weird, right? Huh? I do, but it's on. All right, I'm gonna go check those cables. Anyone who wants to come explore a cable mystery with me, join me. Let's see who can be the best cable detectives. Who among ye can detect the problem with the cables? Well, those look pretty good. Looking. Oh, okay. So
the overheads are in fine.
all right. So the overheads are going to need to be patched. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the Neves. Let's try the Neves in two different. Let's try them in the Focusrites or patch snake patches. Does what need to be where?
This is being patched.
Oh, dog. You found it. You found it. Look at you. Look at me. Look at all of us. Never mind, leave the Neves where they are. We found them. They were patched from another live room thing that we just didn't look at the patch bay.
Oh.
We assumed that we hadn't patched anything, and we hadn't. Somebody did, though.
Come on, dude.
I know, right? There's a lesson there. Never assume anybody, especially me, is not a stupid idiot. Just hit me with the snares. This is my phase check on my snares and my overheads. Phase canceled. Phase in. Matching the level on my snares. Panning left and right. Actually, let's do this. Let's check my snares against these first. Good. So we have good relationship with the snare mics. So this is me bringing up the snare mics and the overhead mics. And I'm going to flip phase on both of the overheads to check the relationship between the overheads and the two snare mics. Ooh. Out, in. Out, bad, in, good. Good. Cool. Now I'm going to pan my overheads out. Give me hi-hat, floor tom, hi-hat, floor tom. Those are the two extremes of my panning. Hi-hat's basically all over here, floor tom is basically all over there. That's what I'm looking for. Give me kick snare. Staying roughly in the center. Overhead placement, if you want wide overheads, will necessarily have the effect of smearing your center a little bit. There's really no such thing as wide and perfect center. They're fundamentally at odds, right? Sum and difference. We've talked about this before. The things that are the same in your mix create the center. The things that are different create the sides. Therefore, if your sides are more vibrant, your center is by definition less vibrant. We could apply the Heisenberg uncertainty principle here and say that neither one can correlate to the other exactly, matter-of-factly, and this is true. So for all kinds of reasons, both lofty and just super basic, bottom line, you want to decide whether you want to be focused on your center or your sides or where in the middle you want to be. Usually I want wide overheads because I'm often going to put a bunch of samples in the middle of my recordings. And if that's the case, then my center is getting remanufactured and the sameness of my overheads plays a much smaller role in how tight and punchy my center is once you're putting samples into the mix. So in general, what I look for in almost every case is wide overheads. And so I want hi-hat, floor tom, and that's good. So take me around the whole kit. I kind of like this setup with the crack cymbals right in the center. It's pretty interesting. You can hear the sides are determinate. The sides are certain. That comes from overheads pointed straight down. Comes from overheads pointed at specific pieces of the kit. So your ears can pick out what is the left, what is the right. There isn't a lot of inward tilting. If I wanted to focus on center, I'd be tilting my overheads inward, pointing both of them at the snare or between the snare and the kick. That'd give me really vibrant center. My sides would be less defined. All right. Let's check out that hi-hat. Keep going. What the dong? Did I change that up? Nope. Man, I really thought we had this solved. How about the ride? What the dong? What the actual dick? All right. Oh, did we move where the hi-hat and ride are plugged in? I asked you to, and then I yelled not to. So what did we land on?
7 and 8.
7 and 8. Aha! Cool. Killing Phantom. Gonna connect 7 and 8 to my hi-hat and ride. And after much ado, enjoy the fruits of our labor. Look at that. Look at that. Ride me. Whoa, you guys hear the gong? All right, stop. So pop quiz, if I wanted to get less of the gong, more of the bell, what would I do?
Well, you can move it more towards the center of this, not the...
Yeah, go do it. Get me more bell, less gong. Yeah, correct. Yes, all right. All right. So once we get all these mics up and running, I might do a little EQ on the overheads, blah, blah, blah. Once we've got a sound that we like, we're gonna start going into our one-shot workflow. We wanna kind of have an idea of how we're gonna be using those one-shots later on. And so to that end, what do you plan to do with these, Nick?
Just like build them all together into a beat.
Build them into a beat. So are you going to do that in Ableton, in Pro Tools? If so, what means? Are you just going to drag the samples onto the timeline?
Yeah.
You're going to throw them into a drum rack?
Pro Tools drag them onto the grid.
Pro Tools drag them onto the timeline.
Yeah.
So in Pro Tools, you could use something like Steven Slate drums, which would be my method, to just sort of program each one to a specific MIDI note, and then you could create your drums in MIDI. You could use Trigger to trigger TCI samples in that case. You could do this either way, but in either case, we want to know what kind of samples we want and how detailed we need to get. If we're just dropping things onto a hip hop timeline, we may not need anything except like one dynamic level of kick that sounds good, one dynamic level of snare. That's kind of how hip hop is constructed. However, if we want to build a more dynamic picture of this drum kit, if we want to be able to use Steven Slate Trigger to its full capacity, or Steven Slate drums, or Drumagog, Superior Drummer, you name it, whatever your drum software is, if you're using dedicated drum triggering software, Battery, Contact, any of these are going to ask you to have multi-timbral, multi-layered, not multi-timbral, multi-sample, multi-dynamic layer samples. So what we're gonna want from these one-shots, just to be broad and to make sure our bases are covered, firstly, because the project at hand is a hip-hop joint, we wanna make sure we've got one sample from each drum that sounds like we want for this thing. Yeah, as close as we can get. That mindset is one that is so easy to overlook as an engineer. When you're moving fast, when you're trying to be thorough, you're trying to cover bases, you're trying to work on, you're trying to accomplish things that you've learned about in theory, you can forget to just listen to the thing coming out of the speakers and make sure you get the thing coming out of the speakers to sound like you need it to, right? So don't record 6 samples at 6 different dynamics and never stop to wonder if any one of them sounds awesome. That's my point, right? So, and that again stems back to have a plan, have a demo, have a reference, know what you're trying to get from your recording, and then try to get it. I could go on and like this all day. You guys know what I'm talking about. I've made this point a lot. So what we're going to do today is we're going to get round robin ready, multi-layered, multi-dynamic layer samples. So for each drum, we're going to go around and, oh, you done with your ride cymbal? Cool. Hit that ride. Crash it. Woo! Again. Cool. No, that's great. Much better, right? Great work. Okay, cool. And what did you do? Pointed it at the bell. It might even be a little bit too much bell, but frankly, I think we're gonna be fine. All right, so let's check these all out, get everything going. I'm gonna create a drums bus by selecting all these tracks, going to the rightmost, holding Shift Option, going to New Track, calling it Drums. Solo safe, because that's what we do with buses. We solo safe them. Yeah, that's what we do. And then I'm gonna start doing a rough mix on this kit. Rough mixing. This is something that I see overlooked a whole lot. So I'm also gonna do some groups because I need some groups. Drums group, kicks group, snares group, toms group, and overheads group. Cool. I'm also gonna go and set these overheads to their own bus. and send that to my drums bus. Cool, because I might want to do a little EQ on these overheads. So go ahead and record me a little something. All right, that's good, thank you. Good. All right, so, yeah, all that. So I'm just gonna get a little loop going here. Good Lord. Keyboard focus though, thank you. Great, okay. Yeah, oh, tablet transient. Look at all these buttons we need to press. Okay. Cool, I'm gonna go here. And I'm gonna turn record enable off. Focus this a little bit more. Still, we got a little bit of this. Cool. All right, cool. So now we've got the sounds we want. I'm going to delete this stuff. I'm going to go turn my groups back on, make a new playlist, hit record on everything. All right, so have you done one-shots with me before? No? Okay, cool. So what I need from you is a light kick, a medium kick, and a heavy kick, and I need 3 of each just to start off with. To start off, we're trying to give me 3, let's start off with heavy kicks. Give me 3 hard kicks. All right, but here's the thing, we need to get the tails completely isolated from each of these. So let each one completely ring out before the next one starts. So with kicks, that's probably safe. Let's leave even a little more space. All right, so what did he do when he left more space? Quieter, right. That was a lower dynamic when you gave me more space. So nice and hard, but space in between. Nice. Yeah, those felt pretty good. And you want to listen. I thought that middle one was a nice, solid kick. You want to make sure you get at least one really good one. If not, make them do some more. Those are good one shots. So if you would now do, hang on, and let me tell you when. One thing I often like to do with these is to label them. So I go through, and if you double click with the grabber tool, you can change the name of a clip. And I'm going to change the name of this one to Hard Kicks. And then, all right, go ahead and give me medium kicks. That was pretty damn good. Yeah, great work, man. Nice and solid. We'll keep those as medium kicks. Now go ahead and give me soft kicks. Notice I can do this naming while I'm tracking. Yeah, great.
Jet, should he turn off the snares while he's doing the other drums to prevent bleed?
It's a great question. So I would usually record them both ways, or have some kind of notion exactly of going in of what I want. We would definitely, for example, when we do that tom, we're going to need to kill the snare, maybe even take it out of the room. There are big problems and there are little problems. And you want to decide, like, the whole reason you'd use live drum samples, because at this point there are a bazillion great sounding drum samples out there just to download. The reason you'd use samples like this is to get some reality, get some connection to a real room that you could then go record other stuff in, you know, to get something specific to you. So to that end, like the bleed from that you're talking about, again, great question. You would want to ask that question of yourself in this project. It wasn't bothering me. And what we want to also be aware of is that we haven't, each of these samples has all of the mics. So I might go through and on the particular one shot that I choose to do with this kick, it might be like this. Oh yeah. Right? So if you just use the direct mics, you can still control a lot of those bleed factors. So a lot of the time something like that, I would probably leave. Something like the snare coming up on this tom, I would definitely take care of. But again, that's a strong judgment call for sure. All right, so now give me three hard snares. I'll take 3 hard snares when you can. Those sounded great. Nice and even. So you've never done one-shots before?
No, I'm just awesome.
Well, now I don't want to say it. He seems to be predisposed to be great at this. Some drummers really have trouble with this, like out of context, playing hard, especially playing medium, especially playing soft, give nice, considerate layers of dynamics that are self-similar. You know, oftentimes what you'll have in the medium is like medium, soft, soft, and you have to kind of like coach them to get them to give you those. Medium dynamics are usually the toughest ones. You could separate into greater layers of dynamics if you got a jazz guy in there who wants to give you, you know, pianissimo, piano, mezzo forte, forte, fortissimo. Great. And some guys could do it on some drums, but in this case, 3 is probably good enough. That was great. Give me medium snares. This is a perfect time to ask the question, should we go and kill the toms by either putting like blankets on them or moving them out of the room, whatever it takes. You know, again, in this case, they're not bugging me enough that I don't want them in there as part of that live sound. And again, I'm pretty sure if we listen to the direct mics, they're largely unencumbered by tom sound. Go ahead with soft snares. Medium snares. Muy bueno. All right, so let's do Tom 1. Got to get that snare. Okay, let's kill it. And you guys can hear how obvious that is, right? So how obviously a problem.
Is that what that turned off?
They're probably still on. Maybe turn them off. Maybe just like pick that drum up and walk it out of the room. You know.
Looking at that set, I don't think.
Go to the bathroom, water boy. I'm gonna try to turn this lav off.
Rim shot at that last one. Yeah.
Often that's not a compliment for a drummer, but that is, in this case, yes. Cool. And now medium tom 1. Great. And soft tom 1. Cool, bueno. Hard tom 2. Let's separate those by just a little bit more. Good. Medium tom 2. That third one sounded pretty soft. Hang on. Go again. if we can, like, so the second two on that one sounded soft. I'm going to separate these out because I may have soft and medium all done for you. Cool. And then these would be soft. Yeah, those are about as soft as I can imagine wanting on a floor tom for this kind of thing. Great. Yay! Hang on. Rendering, great. And then naming, hard tom, medium tom. All right, so in most cases, this is as far as you would need to go. You can sample hi-hats, you can sample rides, you can sample crashes, you can sample any damn thing you want. I'm gonna choose not to do the hi-hats and the rides in this kit because they kind of sound meh. But if you wanted to, you would do that. Often those are really good things to have in if your project is live drums. So you're doing like a rock song, you get your one-shots. Always get your one-shots. Always get your one-shots. You can use these samples to affect your level of bleed versus direct. So say you've got your tom and you're cleaning out your tom tracks, but you got your drummer's like riding a cymbal through a chorus, and then psh, 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 and also and no matter how you edit your toms out, every time your toms get loud, you get this crazy cymbal coming up with them. That's your classic problem in rock tom recording. If you have those one-shots, you layer those samples back over those toms, and then you can control the level of bleed that you actually allow into that paradigm. Yeah, the three different samples here is to allow for round robin sampling. So if you've got a all on the same tom and you use all the same sample, it sounds ridiculous like a drum machine. But if you alternate or you even better round robin between those three samples, then it sounds a lot more lifelike. So that's for when you have more than one hit in a row. Okay, so last thing we'll do is we'll actually export a couple of samples that we can use. So let's look at some hard kicks, some hard snares. Let's see. Your Dunsky, get out of there. Of course, we'll leave it set up, and if you want anything else different, it's there for you. So I'm going to listen to these kicks. I'm going to make sure I get the whole tail. Try not to get more than I need. All right, there's a little more. Cool. Put a little fade at the end. And then decide on a blend. So if this is me and this is a kit that I know I really want to use, a lot of the time I'll save this session and I might do a different blend per song, per usage. I might be trying to affect the blend of the microphone. So I might just, for example, in that tom scenario, I might just layer the direct mics on the toms over top. I might layer a full tom recording of overheads and rooms and everything. It really depends on how I'm trying to move the needle with my samples. It's really not bad.
Better than it was. Yeah, it's better than it was in the room.
So I'm digging that. Might even do a little more. Ooh, right? That's all right. I'll believe that. Set my output level. I like -15 dBFS. You guys know that about me. All right, so then I'm just gonna feel like this one's got a certain magic to it. Bounce the disc. Offline is fine. And then this is gonna be Dungeon Samples. kick, close, 1. 24-bit, 44-1. In this case, I probably want a mono-summed. You might want an interleaved. You might be used to working with samples that are all in stereo. That's fine. If you're trying to work with something like trigger, mono-summed is probably the way to go. If you're trying to work with something like just throwing things on your timeline, maybe the stereo version. In this case, there is some stereo to it. We do have the left and right. Oh, no, there isn't. There's no stereo. We're just going to go with mono-summed. You might find that you are, and then we're going to import this from where we're at, right here. Where did I save it? Did I save it in here? Yeah, I did. Okay, cool. Bounce files, kick close. Always copy, even though it is in the bounce files folder, just don't. Add is bad. Always. Cool. So now I've got this sample in here. If I want to come down here and just make it its own thing. Yeah? Let's compare them. I actually like the summed version a little better. So anyway, that's our sample. And if we wanted to work with that by dropping on timeline, we could easily do that. Let's make a snare sample too and drop that on the timeline, and then we'll do our whole thing. Hard snares. See what we get if we add a little overhead. I like it better without. Cool. Output of -15. You know that's what I like. Little fade on that. Same process, bounce the disc. Cool. Bring it in. Oh, come on now. Come on now. There we go. And the snare. Yep. Oh no, that's gonna play out the. What am I doing? What am I doing? So this guy might actually be able to bring this guy in just to here. I'm not sure how this is going in because I haven't gone into preferences. But if you go up into preferences. And you go to processing, your import, automatically copy files on import, great. So it's copied into our folder. The drag and drop is set up properly, great. We'll make the snare. And now we're just gonna go in here and just to make this easy. Exactly. That's how we do. Yeah?
Yeah.
Word. All right. Go to it. Thank you for watching the seminar. My name's Jet Jaguar. Do we have any questions, Waterboy?
Nobody wrote anything. So.
Waterboy, I would like for you to ask questions, just like write some down as we go next time so I don't feel ignored. Ask me questions, internet.
Why?
42.
There we go.
All right. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week when our topic will be something else other than what we did this week. Thank you.